Hello, literature lovers. Today I'm discussing some special points related to Old English. English can be developed through the phases. Old English starting 450 to 1100, Middle English 1100 to 1500, Modern English started with 1500, and now Indo-European family using the Italic, Germanic, also called Teutonic. It is asked most of the times in detail. Latin and French really helped in it. Talking about English that came from England is only in the middles of the 15th century, whereas man has inhabited Britain from thousands of years before then. The first people known to have inhabited the island, we all know England is an island, and it was later to become England, where the Celts, that is, spoke Celtic, that remained quite prominent language in England until Romans when Latin was introduced. Talking about the impact of Celtics on the modern English, that really served mainly on the places Belfast and York, London, Glasgow, that is in Scotland right now. Some of the rivers related to it. Holcombe or the Wilcombe. The original Celtic meaning for these places, names cannot be surely said. Next, talking about the Romans under Julius Caesar, which was invaded in around 55 BC, but the actual conquest was in AD 53 under Calculus, when the Celtic warriors could not be no longer resist the much stronger Roman army. Next, talking about the Roman occupation on the Britain that lasted about 53 AD till 410. And the Roman occupied Britain for more than around 300 years. In Latin, it was called casta, that is camp, which have some English place name like Chester, Manchester, Lancaster. It's all because of the impact of Latin. So we can see that Latin contributed to the development of Britain. And not talking about German invasion, how it invaded, which is close to 6th century, and the Angles and the Saxons and the Jutes, all of them did it. Germanic tribes had a lot of things in common, and they were semi-nomadics, and they moved a lot. Next, talking about in the 17th century, the Latin name of the for the country was the, and they become angel in their own English, while name of the language was Angliesque, and it was around the 10th century that the word England, that is angel land or land of the angels, appeared, and later on became England. So that is how it's a very interesting fact that that thing happened. That is not talking about the grammar. All after the Latin grammar was introduced, it really the old vocabulary, English vocabulary is already entirely lifted from Germanic languages. So it's quite related to that. Talking about the old English, this was the way it was written. God was in GODE. So it was the case. Now talking about the modern English, in the beginning of the word was there. The word was with God. The word was God. DE was there. Same was the beginning with it. All the things were made by him. One of the first works of literature in the English. It's a very famous work, Beowulf, and the author is one of the earliest converts, who was educated in classic literature. Another product of this early Christian education is a man by name Bede. That's why it's called the Venerable Bede, who was educated at the University of Weymouth. A very important work was authored Essential History of English Nation. It was written in Latin. Old English was quite Latinized, and so the words are really have that impact. Now, later on in the domestic cases, the school, Latin master, and grammatic trees of the education use these words, names as used in the following. This is from the Denmark, which was the Vikings in the Scandinavian region. That is means Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, and they were the neighbors. Continued by that time, and Vikings became quite permanent settlers in England, and they really absorbed the native population and accepted the Anglo-Saxon religion and language. Here are the words, some of the Scandinavian words that talk about how they change the prefix and some ending prefixes. Like Gibson, Jackson, the use of son is there, Johnson, Watson. Some of the noun places were changed, bank, birth. All these languages are being becoming part of it. Now comes the Nomads, who really made up the Danes and other settlers from northern Europe. And the district was there. The civilization of Normandy was essentially French, so you can see the French touch is there in it. And here comes the William of Normandy, who was crowned as the King of England on 25th of December 1066, and that was at the famous Battle of Hastings. And in 1204, different political and economical climate emerged, and King John of England lost his control of Normandy, and that led to the conflict with French. And the Germanic tribe had occupied the region still called Angelen and in Watso, later German. The earlier mention of the Alexandrine mathematician all have that impact, and some of the other Joland, which is in physical and geographic peninsula in the North Europe, talking about it. The four major dialects hence can be recognized as Old Englishes. Firstly by Jules, then by West section, and Nomadian and the Mercian. All of them can be taken part as part of the England region. And the name Britain comes from the Latin word Britannia. And with the ancient Roman applied to the island, sorry. Now comes the early Norman literature, starting with Geoffrey Gomer. He was an Anglo-Norman poet and historiographer, and he wrote history of English, narrating the heroic achievements of the Anglo-Normans. All was given, and this was called the Roman Era, the heroic achievements of the nomads. It's in decasyllabic and octosyllabic lines, 17,000 in number. Now comes the early Norman literature. It includes all of this. William the First, the Conqueror, was there at a time, and then comes son of William. All of them really contributed at that time. Now comes the late Norman literature that's given here, and the great St. Thomas Becket, the legendary knight who was martyred, and for it was based Mother of the Cathedral by T.S. Eliot, and also referring in the Canterbury Tales was given about his martyr. Next comes the Proto-Indo-Europeans seems to have been highly infected, as our ancient languages such as Sanskrit, Avestan, and ancient Greek all were referred here. Now comes the English language. This is one of the most clear and pure form of English language, and the etymology information of the New English Dictionary on the basis of the historical principles is given here, and development has been shown, demonstrated through the earlier references. That's all for today. Thanks for being part of it. Thank you.